Hello there, Reddit readers and enthusiasts, and welcome to Woven Webs, where we bring you life and relationship stories ranging from the somewhat typical to those on the very fringe. Today's post comes from the Relationships subreddit, posted by Eisboig. He writes, "My wife isn't loving my new friend group. I'm 41 and my 40-year-old wife isn't loving my new friend group. We've been married and together for almost 20 years. We met in college, and since we both moved for school, we've always had the same group of friends. As we got older, this naturally transitioned to us mostly having couple friends. Now, our marriage is pretty solid. We still love each other very much, and there's been no hints of infidelity, but I can't say we haven't become a bit set in our ways. A few years back, I made some big changes to my health and fitness and started running regularly. My wife was generally supportive, but at times I could tell she was quite put off when it got in the way of something she wanted to do. So about 6 months ago, I joined a running group. The group meets on Thursday nights for a run, and then we get drinks after. It's a mixed group with age ranges from 28 to 42 and various relationship statuses. Now, I really get along with these folks and have become friends with a number of them. This means I generally stay out later on Thursdays and have hung out with them on separate occasions as well. It's been amazing to meet a new group of friends at my age, and they share a lot of interests with me that my wife just doesn't like. For instance, we had a weekend kayaking trip recently, which my wife absolutely would not have been on board for. My wife acts like she's cool with me hanging out with these folks, but I can tell she doesn't love it. And I get it. I'm suddenly staying out late and spending weekends away with a bunch of people she doesn't know, and that includes some younger, single women. With that said, I'm absolutely open about everything with her, and there's nothing funny going on. I'm not sure it's even jealousy of that sort, but rather she'd rather I just be home and available at all times in case she wants or needs me for something. Recently, she started acting passive-aggressive about anything that involves plans with the group. Her and I have a shared calendar, and if something's going on and we have nothing planned, I'll add it in. Aside from Thursday nights, these events really only happen every few weeks. We have other plans pop up. It's like she intentionally tries to plan over these events rather than just saying we're busy and looking for another free night. Recently, she got a bit upset with me for going to my regular running night after she returned home from a work trip. She told me repeatedly that she was exhausted and was going to bed early, so I thought it would be fine. But then I get some passive-aggressive texts, so I cut out early and went home, and we sat on our phones not talking with the TV on for 45 minutes before she goes to bed. I've tried including her in some of my recent activities in the past, but she'll mostly just complain and then makes excuses to not do them again. She doesn't have a separate group of friends on her own, but she's very close with a lot of her colleagues, and any time she goes to a work event, which they are pretty frequent, I can count on her not answering her phone and coming home pretty drunk very late at night. This doesn't upset me at all, and I trust her. Now, for my part, I will admit that I selfishly don't really want to involve her in my friend group at this point. They're new friendships, and I don't want to change the dynamic. I also know that she won't have a lot in common with these folks, and if I'm honest, I also worry a little bit about her sabotaging things. I don't really know how to proceed at this point. I really don't want to give up my new friends, but I don't know how to work through it with my wife. So, I recently laid my cards on the table, and we're now laughing and bonding in front of a campfire, talking about how I'm a cheating asshole, and she's a codependent mess, and our marriage is on the verge of imminent collapse. We also talked through things, and she admitted she's feeling a bit neglected, that it might be coming out as passive aggression, but she doesn't mean for it to. Now, I assured her she's my ride or die, and I told her I'd make sure she felt like my number one priority in the future. She also said she understood my reasons for not wanting to invite her out with folks immediately, but she trusted we'd get there soon enough. And for the comments now, Snail Overload writes in, "Nothing here suggests to me that your wife suspects infidelity, or even that she doesn't like your friends. To me, it sounds like she's feeling jealous of the quality time you spend with your friends versus the quality time you spend with her. You plan activities with your wife, you guys go out on dates. Are you personally trying to make an effort to initiate fun activities? You just have to talk to your wife. You can tell she's upset, so ask her why instead of making assumptions. You might be surprised by her answers." Dirty Soil comments, I think this all sounded fine until you mentioned in the end that you don't want to involve her in your friend group. People pick up on these kind of feelings, and I'm sure your wife notices that you don't want her involved. All I hear is how much your wife doesn't like all these things instead of ways you've tried to balance the new situation. I'd be upset too if my partner found a whole new group of friends and clearly didn't want me involved, let alone coveting them and keeping me away. Think about it. If your wife suddenly had a new group of friends with all ages and got along super well with them, including weekend getaways, but wouldn't let you meet them, how would you feel? Suitable Leather writes, I think it's interesting that he casually points out the multiple younger single women in the new friend group, and then he says he doesn't want to introduce his wife because it would change the dynamic. Either he doesn't like his wife if he thinks she'd ruin his time, or he's doing something that he can't do when she's around. Sahara Desert writes, Yep, clocked that right away. He's being such an asshole. I promise there's things the friend group and wife have in common, like brunch or getting drinks. She's not dumb, and she can pick up on his hesitation introducing her. Nobody would feel okay with being excluded like that, and begrudgingly inviting someone as shitty. It puts the other person in a bad position, having to say no when they don't actually want to, or saying yes but knowing your significant other doesn't really want you there. It's nowhere near the same as an enthusiastic invite. Pravis writes, It sounds like a hashing group, and honestly, if it is one or even similar, I'm not surprised by the wife's response. I've known a lot of hashers and groups in multiple locations, and they all seem to behave like drunk frat groups that just happen to run a little before their wild shenanigans. Lots of hookups as well, and many relationships have been broken up after one joined the hashing group. Millie Gatto has a different opinion here. I think it's actually really a normal and healthy thing to have a friend group that you spend time with without your partner. Having your partner there changes the dynamic, and it is totally normal to want time with friends without your partner. I agree that it sounds like he may not be balancing things well, or not making her feel prioritized, but it also sounds like part of not wanting her to get involved is her attitude to the group in the first place. And for the final comment, Kakamillis writes in, I don't think it's unreasonable for your partner to meet your friend group here and there, even if they're your separate group. I understand your wife not being keen on going running with them. I hate running, but she could swing by at least for a drink once or twice after. I actually think seeing the dynamic in action and being able to put faces to the names would go a long way to put her mind at ease. Reddit listeners, what do you think? For me, personally, I was on board with it somewhat until he mentioned in the end that he didn't want to introduce her to the group. That was a red flag to me. I think the guy needs to decide what his priorities are. Does he want to be married or not? Let us know what you think in the comments, and I appreciate you listening.